You know, in the world of global trade, things can get pretty intense. It's like a high-stakes chess match. But what if one side just unveiled a brand new, powerful piece? That's exactly what's happening right now in a massive standoff between the US and the EU. And this new weapon, it might just be used for the very first time.
Okay, get this. EU leaders are saying things like unacceptable and even akin to blackmail. Whoa, those are some seriously strong words. And it's all because the United States has threatened massive tariffs. The reason? It's all about Greenland, its strategic location, its resources. You get the picture. So yeah, this is way more than just a simple trade spat. We're talking about a full-on geopolitical pressure campaign.
But here's the twist. This time, the EU isn't just taking it. They've got a powerful, brand new tool in their back pocket. And some people are calling it the trade bazooka. A bazooka! So what in the world is this thing? And more importantly, are they actually about to pull the trigger? All right, let's get into it.
So, to really get a handle on this bazooka, we first need to understand the battle that's brewing. And make no mistake, this isn't ancient history. This is happening right now, and the clock is ticking.
Okay, so here's how it's all going down. On January 17th, the US basically said, we're slapping 10% tariffs on goods from 8 of your countries. And the catch? They said they'd do it unless the EU stopped getting in the way of a US effort to acquire Greenland, which, by the way, is packed with valuable rare earth minerals. So as we speak, emergency talks are happening in Brussels. But that clock is ticking really, really loud because there's a hard deadline, February 1st. And this kind of intense pressure is the exact reason the EU built this new weapon in the first place. It's officially called the Anti-Coercion Instrument, or ACI for short. So what exactly is economic coercion? Well, think of it like this. It's when one country uses its economic muscle, things like tariffs, not to fix a trade problem, but to straight up bully another country. They're trying to force them to change their policies on totally unrelated stuff, like foreign policy or security or even their environmental rules.
Now, before this ACI came along, the EU's main move was to go to the World Trade Organization. And look, the WTO is important, but it can be, well, slow, painfully slow. Things can get bogged down for years. But the ACI, it's designed to be the complete opposite. It's both a shield for defense and a sword for a really fast, unified counterpunch.
And a little background here is super important. The ACI is brand new. It was just formally adopted in December of 2023. And it didn't just appear out of nowhere. It was a direct answer to real-world events, like the economic pressure China put on Lithuania, or even previous US tariffs. And the key thing to remember is, this has to be a collective EU action. One country can't just go rogue. It's really meant to be a deterrent, a last resort, that big trade bazooka that makes other countries think twice before trying to push the EU around.
Right, so just because you have a bazooka doesn't mean you just fire it off, right? Same thing here. The process for actually unlocking the ACI is super careful and deliberate. There are steps.
So, let's walk through it. Step 1. The EU Commission has to investigate and say, yep, this is definitely economic coercion. Step 2, and this is absolutely crucial, they have to try diplomacy first. They have to try and talk it out and de-escalate. So this isn't some trigger-happy tool. It's only if those talks completely fail that it moves to step 3, which is a vote by the EU Council. And if that passes, then we get to step 4. The countermeasures are officially put into place.
So what kind of countermeasures are on the table? Well, the menu of options is pretty extensive and pretty powerful. We're talking everything from new tariffs on imports to restricting access to the EU's huge services market. They could even suspend intellectual property protections. It's a whole toolbox designed to be flexible and hit where it hurts.
Okay, so as you can probably imagine, pulling the trigger on something this big would have massive, massive consequences. And not just for the US and the EU. We're talking about ripple effects across the entire global economy.
Let's just start with one number to put this in perspective. 93 billion euros. That's the potential value of US goods that could get targeted by these countermeasures. That could hit major American industries. We're talking tech, aviation, agriculture, you name it. The economic pain would be very, very real. Now, it's really important to remember, this is just our humble effort to break down this really complex topic. This is absolutely not financial advice. It's not a buy, hold, or sell call on anything. You should always consult your own financial advisor before making any decisions. But with that said, when you think about that huge number, remember, it's not just abstract. Behind it are real businesses, real jobs, real supply chains. Think about American farmers trying to sell soybeans or tech companies that depend on the European market. A full-blown trade war means disruption and a whole lot of uncertainty for everyday people on both sides of the Atlantic.
And it goes way beyond just the money. The political risks here are enormous. For the EU itself, if this works, it could make them a stronger, more unified bloc. But if they can't agree, it could expose some really deep divisions. Then there's the transatlantic relationship. This could seriously damage the alliance between NATO partners. And for the rest of us, a trade war between two economic superpowers could slow down the entire global economy and create even more of the supply chain chaos we've all gotten tired of.
So yeah, the stakes really could not be higher. This whole thing is about so much more than just tariffs. We're talking about the stability of alliances that have been in place for decades and the overall health of a global economic system. It's one of those decisions that has consequences that just ripple outwards. And hey, if you want to see how this whole standoff unfolds and get more deep dives like this one, now would be a great time to subscribe to the channel.
Which, of course, brings us to the million-dollar question, or maybe the 93 billion euro question. With everything that's at stake, are they actually gonna do it? Will they pull the trigger? Let's be really clear about something. If they do this, it would be a genuinely historic moment. This anti-coercion instrument has never, ever been used before. Firing it for the first time, especially against a close ally like the US, would set a huge precedent for how countries deal with each other from now on.
And the decision is, well, it's really tough. When you look at the arguments, it's incredibly balanced. On the one hand, you've got reasons to do it. The current US administration has a track record of following through on these kinds of threats. The pushback from EU leaders has been really strong, and that tight February 1st deadline is forcing their hand. But then, on the other hand, you've got major reasons for caution. Back-channel talks might still work. The EU member states might not all agree on such a drastic step. And there's always the risk that the US just escalates things even further, which nobody wants. So, where does that leave us? What are the experts saying? Honestly, right now, it looks like a total toss-up. The odds are pretty much 50-50. This thing could just as easily get solved through diplomacy as it could explode into a full-on trade war. The outcome is truly hanging in the balance.
And that's where we'd love to hear from you. What do you think is going to happen? Will the EU actually activate this trade bazooka, or will cooler heads prevail in the end? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. We really do read them. And of course, if you want to follow this story and get more explainers on complex topics like this, please subscribe. Seriously, your support is what gives us the motivation to keep making this content.
Okay, and just one last, very important reminder. This entire breakdown has been for educational purposes only. It's just our attempt to make sense of a complicated situation. It is definitely not a recommendation to buy, hold, or sell anything, and our channel is not responsible for any financial losses you might incur. Please always consult with a certified financial advisor before you make any decisions. And that leaves us with one big question to chew on. As these kinds of powerful economic tools become more common, are we just entering a new era? An era where economic warfare is the new normal and how countries deal with each other? It's definitely something to think about. Thanks so much for joining us.